and welcome to National Focus. I am Aliyah Martin. In the headlines, new measures put in place to continue fight against COVID-19 in Dominica, and government committed to the well-being of the elderly. Details of the headline stories and more when we return. Welcome back. The government of Dominica is committed to the improvement of lives of the elderly. In the 2020-2021 fiscal year, government announced that a non-contributory pension payable to persons over the age of 70 who were not otherwise in receipt of a pension would increase to $300 monthly. Over 1,000 Dominican Social Security pensioners who were in receipt of pensions lower than $300 were brought up to the maximum.
The DSS had not, however, applied that minimum to persons who, for reasons of ill health, had to quit employment, and if satisfying the qualifying conditions, received an invalidity pension. Such persons, if they qualify at the minimum, are still in receipt of $202 monthly. And that came to my attention by my interaction with the people. A lady came to me and said she's only getting $202 a month from Social Security. I said, no, you should be getting $300. And it's only then she told me that she's getting invalidity pension. And I recognized that that increase to $300 did not apply to them. And so, Mr. Speaker, with effect from August 1, 2021, the minimum invalidity pension paid by DSS will now be $303 monthly.
Prime Minister Skerrit called on employers to ensure they meet their obligations to the DSS.
It has also been brought to my attention, Mr. Speaker, that when employers do not make the payments to Social Security on behalf of the employees, this reduces the pension. I would therefore like to call on these employers to ensure that they meet the obligations to DSS on behalf of the employees. This will secure their future. This will secure future payments to pensioners and add to their quality of life in their twilight years.
While government continues to ensure that the elderly are taken care of, persons with disabilities is also high on the cards for government. In 2012, government signed on to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and they dedicated a special ministerial portfolio to give more attention to this group.
We are committed to respecting the rights and inherent dignity of this vulnerable group among us. We are therefore taking the important step of putting a commission in place to look after the interests of persons living with disabilities. The commission will advise the government on the policies, programs, and activities to be implemented in order to promote and ensure the equal opportunity, equal employment and enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms of individuals living with disabilities. It will comprise individuals with disabilities as well as representatives of care institutions, non-government organizations, and the private and public sectors.
As Dominica continues the fight against COVID-19 with the recent cluster of cases, the government of Dominica has put measures in place to keep citizens safe. A curfew is currently in effect and will continue to Monday the 9th, with the decision being reviewed on that date. Individuals should not be out during the hours of 6 p.m. and 5 a.m. from August 3rd to August 6th. On Saturday, August 7th, the curfew hours start at 5 p.m. and ends at 5 a.m. on Monday, August 9th. That is a total lockdown on Sunday. Secretary to the Cabinet, Ms. Karen Prevost, says only essential workers should be out during that period.
For the purposes of the order, essential service includes air traffic, including Met, telecommunication, security, fire and ambulance services connected with airports, fire and ambulance, prison or police service, medical, health, hospital, infirmary or nursing home services, telecommunication or broadcasting services, water, electricity or sanitation services, banking business services, credit union business services, grocery, agricultural, fisheries or pharmaceutical services, immigration, custom or postal services, services connected with the House of Assembly, services connected with the loading and unloading of ships.
The Cabinet Secretary outlined the workers who fall under the bracket of essential workers.
An essential worker includes officers of the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force, the Dominica State Prison, members of the judiciary, the Department of Social Services, the Department of Environmental Health Services, the Custom and Excise Division, the Accountant General's Division, the Inland Revenue Division, waste disposal and sanitation companies, any hospital or health care, medical, residential care establishment or facility, the Dominica Air and Seaports Authority, essential officers of any water, electricity, or other sector encompassing the provision of electronic communication, including print and electronic media. Any public officer or category of public officer as directed by the Secretary to the Cabinet who is in a public place for the purposes of work.
Essential businesses are now permitted to operate from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. These businesses are considered essential to operate under the SRO 19 of 2021.
The essential services that are permitted to open between the hours of 6 a.m. to 4 a.m. Monday to Friday are as follows: banks, credit unions, and money services businesses, wholesale or retail grocery stores, village shops, supermarkets, mini-marts, and commercial bakeries, petrol stations, and pharmacies. It is important to note that all essential workers shall at all times carry identification. Such identification must be produced on demand to the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force. Every non-essential business shall remain closed except for the following businesses: hardware stores and businesses that provide products to the construction industry.
To ensure the safety of all citizens, these businesses should adhere to the protocols put in place by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and New Health Investment.
To ensure the safety of all workers, every business that is permitted to open must, according to the order, ensure on-site compliance with the following: hand sanitization of all workers and persons upon entry into the business site, maintenance of sanitized mess areas, sanitization of washrooms on a continuous 60-minute cycle. So far as reasonable practicable, maintenance of social distancing of a minimum of 2 meters at all times, and also face masks must be provided for each worker. The order makes it categorically clear that all bars and nightclubs shall be closed during the period, and there shall be no consumption of alcohol in or on the vicinity of any shop, grocery store, supermarket, or any public place.
Meanwhile, the public is encouraged to wear masks at all times and continue to wash and sanitize hands regularly. The Ministry of Health, Wellness and New Health Investment is advising all to get vaccinated to join the fight against COVID-19. Minister for Health, Wellness and New Health Investment, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, made this appeal during the ministry's most recent press briefing on Wednesday.
We are therefore again appealing to the public to participate in the vaccination program. It still serves as one of our major defenses against the COVID-19 virus.
Minister McIntyre says in light of the increased demand for testing, the ministry has increased its capacity for testing.
A new testing center has been set up at the Players Pavilion at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium. The public can access the center through the southern gate, which is adjacent to the Judicial Building at the junction of Bath Road and Cock Street. Testing is also available at all type-free health centers in every health district, and efforts are being made to expand testing in other health centers as well.
Anyone experiencing flu-like symptoms should call the hotline at 448-2151, 448-2153, 448-2156, 611-4325, or 1-800-219. The development and construction of the international airport is considered the priority project, with an estimated expenditure of $75 million this fiscal year. More in this report with Shakira Pear.
The international airport will be beneficial to all Dominicans, enhancing agricultural exports and providing job opportunities for many. When completed, direct flights from first world countries will bring more visitors into Dominica. Minister for Trade, Entrepreneurship, Innovation, Business and Export Development, Honorable Ian Douglas, says the implementation of the most impactful project to be undertaken in Dominica brings joy to his heart. He says the international airport has been an anticipated project for many years.
This year makes it 51 years since the hopes and aspirations of air access had started in Dominica, Mr. Speaker. 51 years since the Melvin Hall Airport, then now the Douglas Charles Airport, Mr. Speaker, has been established. So that is how long, 51 years. Mr. Speaker, I am 50 years, I'm not even 51 yet, since we started our hopes and dreams for enhanced air access into Dominica.
The possibilities of enhanced air access into Dominica has been explored since July 1970. Minister Douglas says many attempted to construct an international airport, however, did not succeed.
Today, Mr. Speaker, almost 30 years later, Mr. Speaker, we are still here talking about an international airport, and it is only under this government that we will have an international airport established in Dominica. Make no mistake, let us make no mistake about it, Mr. Speaker. We have the right opportunity, we have the right leader in place, Mr. Speaker, and we have the right mechanism in place for generating the resources required for the establishment of the international airport, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as luck would have it, because God is not a policeman, you know, Mr. Speaker. God does things in the right way for us to see his works, Mr. Speaker.
Minister Douglas says over 12 sites were previously investigated for the construction of the international airport, of which none were deemed suitable. The current Wesley site is proven to be the best site for the construction of the international airport. The assessment for the optimal site took into consideration 5 key measures. These key measures include strict precision landing with no obstruction on takeoff and landing versus curved visual landing, which was previously recommended by the Planning and Stanley firm. The second measure being earthworks, the minimization of the amount of cut and filled requirements. The current site is estimated to require about 14 million cubic meters of earthworks, whilst the Planning and Stanley site required over 20 million cubic meters. The chosen site also took into consideration wind conditions. According to the International Kiteboarding Organization, ICAO, standards wind conditions must be 95% usability. The Wesley site has exceeded the required standards. Social impact: minimize negative disruption in the vicinity of the site with only 70 built properties being disrupted. The final measure considered overall cost. Due to the orientation of the site, the cut and fill would be less, as well as the terrain violation. The airport is funded through the Citizenship by Investment program. Minister Douglas says with this source of funding, the taxpayers of Dominica will not be affected.
When we came to power, we always told the people of Dominica that we want an international airport. But we will never establish an international airport that will be a burden for future generations, Mr. Speaker. We always told the people so. And that is why we established a committee a long time ago, of distinguished public servants and other knowledgeable people within Dominica, Mr. Speaker, to look at the establishment of an international airport. And they looked at all of the reports, including the famous Planning and Stanley report. And when they looked at the Planning and Stanley report, and that is important, because the opposition will try to tell us that this government abandoned the plans that the former United Workers' Party had for the establishment of the airport. They had no plans for any establishment of any airport, Mr. Speaker. Because the committee, when they reviewed the Planning and Stanley Woodford Hill site option, Mr. Speaker, they said, Mr. Speaker, that it limits the dislocation of human settlements within sections of Wesley and Woodford Hill.
The contract for the international airport was signed on Wednesday, June 9, 2021, between the Government of Dominica and the Montreal Management Consultants Establishment, MMCE, to signal the commencement of this project. To date, the lab for material testing is 70% completed, and progress continues on 30 climate-resilient homes in the Joe Bilton area. These homes are expected to be completed by the end of September 2021. Shakira Peer for the Government Information Service.
Thanks, Shakira, for that report. You're watching National Focus. More when we return. Welcome back. Youth of Dominica will not be left behind as development plans are in store for the new fiscal year. Shakira Pear has more in this report.
The government continues to invest in the Ministry of Youth Development and Empowerment, Youth at Risk, Gender Affairs, Senior Security, and Dominicans with Disabilities, as the priority of the administration remains the care for its people. In the fiscal year 2020-2021, over $14 million was allocated to this ministry, of which $500,000 was approved under the Public Sector Investment Program for the renovation of youth centers. This year, over $19 million was allocated to the ministry.
Renovation works were completed on the Grand Bay Youth Enterprise Center and the Grand Bay Youth Center. Renovation works are nearing completion on the Cassibus Youth Enterprise Center, and rehabilitation of the Roseau Youth Center is also ongoing. Retrofitting of the Layo Emergency Shelter and Resource Center was also done to accommodate skills training in the Western District and office space for the youth officer and assistant youth officer for that district. The Maria Holder Memorial Trust agreed to partner with the government of Dominica for renovation of a section of the Marigot Youth Center for an amount of $750,000. Works will commence in August 2021 on that facility.
In the fiscal year 2020-2021, government introduced the grant assistance to first-time homeowners, which was administered under this ministry. Government has announced the extension of this program with $1 million in funding for the fiscal year 2021-2022.
I am happy and elated today to report that 124 young persons have been approved to date. Of these, 66 females and 58 males. This signifies that 83% of the program's target has been achieved thus far. I am especially happy for the 14 individuals from the Kalinago territory who also got approval. So far, we have disbursed over $1.2 million to approved beneficiaries. Mr. Speaker, over the last few weeks, we have received an increased number of applications. This program has certainly encouraged many young people to think about owning their homes.
Minister for Youth, Honorable Dr. Alice King, says there is more in store for her ministry for the fiscal year 2021-2022. She went on to highlight a few of the developments to be undertaken during her contribution at the first meeting of the second session of the 10th Parliament.
We expect to see completion of works on the Roseau Youth Center, further works on the Marigot Youth Center, and commencement of works on the rehabilitation of the Delices Youth Center. This Labour Party government takes the development of the youth of this country very seriously, and I must applaud the Honourable Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers for the approval of funding to upgrade the Youth Skills Training Program at the Youth Development Division. We are indeed working in the interest of our young people. We are also assisting with skills training for young inmates at the Dominica State Prison. This financial year, we intend to provide training in computer literacy, auto body works, stone wall construction, sewing, woodwork, hospitality arts, building maintenance, among others.
Training will also be provided at the Dominica State Prison in small engine repair and sewing. Dr. King highlights the importance of the 4-H Club and the impact it has created on the youth of Dominica.
For the period of the fiscal year, the 4-H coordinator continued collaborative work with agriculture in collaboration with Junior Achievement to implement the GROW project with 4-H clubs. We also hosted the National 4-H Local Leaders Association 4-H Week, A total of 44 4-H clubs participated in activities such as cake decorating, public speaking, 4-H corner competition, and fruit and agriculture day. Mr. Speaker, no segment in the society can match the power, idealism, enthusiasm, and courage of our young people.
The Dominica Youth Business Trust continues to play an integral role in empowering Dominican youth to realize their entrepreneurial potential. In 2020, Cabinet approved for the use of land at Charles Avenue in Goodwill to establish an enterprise incubator. The hub, Dr. King says this hub will be constructed with funding from the IOM, and construction of the first phase is expected to commence soon. This development signals the transformation of youth in Dominica as government aims to secure the future. Shakira Pierre for the Government Information Service.
Thanks again, Shakira, for that report. Meanwhile, in last year's budget, the government of Dominica allocated funds to provide grants of $10,000 to young and first-time home builders or purchasers. Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, says this is in an effort to afford all young individuals the opportunity to have proper living conditions. In the 2021-2022 budget address, Prime Minister Skerrit stated that the program will continue for another year.
As of June 30, 2021, 114 applications were approved and an amount of $1.1 million have been paid to beneficiaries for purchase of building materials, land transfer fees, and services such as utilities and labor costs. This is yet another innovative measure by this government, which has been well received by the beneficiaries, and which has encouraged and supported the development of our young people. As a result, Mr. Speaker, this fiscal year, we have allocated another $1 million to continue this program.
Another measure which was put in place by government in the 2020-2021 budget was the reduction of land transfer fees. This program will also be extended in this fiscal year.
Mr. Speaker, during my presentation of last year's budget, I announced a temporary reduction in land transfer fees to allow potential beneficiaries an opportunity to formally register and obtain certificates of title for their lands. To facilitate this measure, Parliament approved of amendments to the relevant legislation in October 2020, which resulted in the application of the following fees on the transfer or purchase of land with effect from September 1, 2020. Stamp duty 2%, judicial fee 1%, assurance fund 1%, fees to lawyers a maximum of 2.5%. Mr. Speaker, from all indications, Dominicans have welcomed and embraced the opportunity to formalize the ownership of their lands. The number of requests for certificate of titles, as I said earlier, Mr. Speaker, in the fiscal year just passed, was exceeded by 71%, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister Skerrit says government recognizes that this measure has had tremendous positive impact. This is an important measure to facilitate investments in home and property ownership and the acquisition of assets by Dominica's citizens, and also an important tool for economic development.
In view of the positive benefits to our citizens and the numerous calls we have received, and a desire expressed by people to see this measure extended, the government has decided to further extend this measure for one more year. This means, Mr. Speaker, that the current transfer fees of 6.5% to be paid by buyers on the transfer of land or property will apply until October 31, 2022.
Prime Minister Skerrit says dynamic Dominica will be regarded as a strong property-owning democracy. Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, International Business and Diaspora Relations, with specific responsibility for diaspora affairs, Honorable Edward Regis, During his presentation to the 2021-2022 budget, says Dominica continues to benefit from bilateral relations with numerous countries. Minister Regis says that the contract was signed with the Japanese government for the construction of the Roseau Fisheries Complex and the rehabilitation of the Marigot Fisheries Complex.
I'll give you an example, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, not too long ago, we had to sit through the bidding process with the Japanese government to select contractors for the refurbishing of the Roseau and Marigot Fisheries complexes. And Mr. Speaker, many times people believe that we just sit in offices and we enjoy privileges. But I'll tell you, this is hard work. Japan is way across the globe. And so their nighttime is our daytime. Thank God for, virtual meetings. Sometimes you have to stay up at midnight because midnight for us is their midday. But in order to get the work done, Mr. Speaker, we have to make ourselves available to sit in these negotiations, whether it is midnight, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we do it in the best interest of Dominica.
Minister Regis says Dominica has joined 35 other developed countries to roll out the e-passport program. Minister Regis says this initiative will greatly benefit the diaspora community.
Dominicans living overseas, because many of them have been calling, they have been inquiring as to what happens now. So I'm using this platform to inform them that Dominicans living overseas, they are not being left out as they are woven into the fabric of our country despite not being resident on island. To facilitate their needs, a temporary system of mobile registration kits will be implemented to ensure that persons living in the diaspora can apply for their passports. There are a few people who have been trained, Mr. Speaker, to use these mobile kits, and they are expected to travel to the Dominica Overseas Missions in London, in the United Arab Emirates, and New York for short periods of time to enable Dominicans who are so inclined to undertake registration.
Minister Regis informed that over the weeks a review was being done of the diaspora policy.
But the intention was to take that policy document to various diaspora communities around the world. However, COVID came, and so that limited our ability to travel. And so we decided to do this virtually, and a few virtual meetings were conducted with leaders in the diaspora, and they were able to send in their contributions. They were able to send in their suggestions, Mr. Speaker. So what I have in my hand, Mr. Speaker, is a final draft that is being reviewed internally at the ministry and by a few other stakeholders.
And now your weather update. A high-pressure system is expected to be dominant across the area during the next 12 to 24 hours. Localized showers and isolated thunderstorms are possible during the afternoon due to light winds and daytime heating. By Sunday, a tropical wave with a low chance of development is expected to generate an increase in showers and possible thunderstorm activity across the area. Meanwhile, another tropical wave is in the eastern Atlantic is being monitored. This system has a medium chance of development within the next 48 hours and a high chance of development within the next 5 days. The system is projected to become a tropical depression by Saturday into Sunday. Residents are advised to monitor the progress of the system, projected to be near the Lesser Antilles by next Tuesday. Slight dust haze is expected across the area during the next few days. People with respiratory sensitivities should take the necessary precautions to avoid complications. Slight to moderate seas are anticipated during the next 24 hours, with waves peaking near 7 feet. And that's all for this edition of National Focus. Be sure to follow GIS Dominica on Facebook, YouTube, as well as on Twitter. You can also drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm. From all of us here on the GIS News Production team, I am Aaliyah Martin. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend. Remember to continue adhering to the Ministry of Health's COVID-19 protocols to safeguard yourself and your families.